Back on all fronts as Democrats push forward in their impeachment inquiry. Let's break it down for you. President Trump doubling down on his calls to identify the whistleblower, as subpoenas have been issued for Rudy Giuliani and Mike Pompeo. The Secretary of State calling subpoenas an attempt to, quote, bully and intimidate State Department officials. And last night, Rudy took on Biden. Watch this.
Why do you think they're silencing me? Because I'm not making any points? They're silencing me because I showed up with an affidavit yesterday, an accuser who's willing to stand up and point the finger at Joe Biden and say, you're a crook. And I have the proof, and I have the documents, and I've got, the witness will say, the corroboration, because there are more witnesses where he came from, and they're not going to escape this.
But the story Democrats won't tell you about today is Joe Biden caught lying about his knowledge of his son's shady foreign business dealings. Take a look at this newly unearthed photo of Joe and Hunter Biden playing golf with a key Ukrainian gas executive back in 2014. Now, remember when Joe went ballistic and said he'd never spoken to his son about those dealings?
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings.
And so how do you know?
Let's talk. Look, here's what I know. I know Trump deserves to be investigated. He is violating every basic norm of a president. You should be asking him the question, why is he on the phone with a foreign leader, trying to intimidate a foreign leader?
All right, Dana, it's been 2 weeks since the story broke, essentially.
Is that all?
2 weeks, feels like a year, since Peter Doocy asked that pointed question, do you talk to your son about his business dealings? And we know he lied when he said he doesn't. And remember, he warned Peter, don't ask those types of questions. And I think the media has listened because the media has not asked Joe Biden a direct question about all of this. And not only that, the guy at the epicenter of this whole thing, his son Hunter, where's Hunter? They haven't found Hunter anywhere.
So it's interesting, the approaches. So there was a piece today in The Atlantic comparing Clinton's approach of dealing with impeachment to President Trump's, and the suggestion was that Clinton handled it much better. I just don't think the two are quite comparable, right. Especially because one of the things Clinton had going for him was that the media was helping, basically not trying to harm him. But the president's realizing is like his allies are in the Republican Party, and that his approach has always been to push and push and push. The Biden approach, though, on all of this has been it's curious to me. I don't know, beyond seeing the picture, I don't know. He says he didn't talk to his son about it. We haven't seen them. We haven't heard from them, but they are going to have to testify at some point.
When you play golf with the foursome, and one of the guys is your son and the other guy's a mystery guy who happens to have just been appointed to the same gas company in Ukraine that your son has been appointed. Oh, how do you guys know each other? Oh, we're on the same board just a month ago with this Ukrainian gas company. And the father, Joe Biden, is doing business in Ukraine for the administration.
You're talking about the weather, Jesse. Don't be silly.
Well, maybe some yoga or some, right.
Maybe the handicap, I think, because after all, it is golf, and that's the only thing I know about golf is handicap. But you know what? Yeah. It's better than talking about this, which is the transcript, which is the whistleblower's complaint. Donald Trump wants us to talk about anything but this, and this is what has gotten him in hot water.
Is that the transcript or the complaint?
I think you stapled them together.
I did.
Is that the perfect phone call?
No, this is the version that they want us to see. Look, Joe Biden worked with the IMF, the EU, and others. We know what Joe Biden did. We know that there's been no evidence whatsoever of corruption. I went back, Jesse, because
the left-wing media investigated it and determined there's no evidence of corruption?
No, because you inspired me to read the entire 300 pages of information out there. Okay. And what I came up with, look, I'm a very good reader. I even put on my CVS purchased glasses, so I was really exact.
You get a big receipt when you got this?
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, yes, I did. and $25 just
okay, De Niro.
But, so here it is. I really do believe that the Trump administration needs to treat Congress as a co-equal branch of government. I think the administration needs to cooperate with Congress and help them get to the bottom of this so that this saga will be over with by Thanksgiving.
Okay, well, one of the things, Jedediah, that they're trying to get to the bottom of is the foreign interference in the last election and how this collusion hoax began in the first place. And Barr has been directed to talk to the Ukrainians, to the Italians, to the British, and to the Australians.
Yep.
And the media is panicking now.
There's nothing wrong with that. Once again, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I hate to say it, but there's nothing on the call. I mean, I know now they're saying, oh, Pompeo was on the call. This is such breaking news. Yeah, well, we were basically all on the call, too, because the transcript is in front of us all, and we know exactly what he said, and there's no quid pro quo there. I think Joe Biden's in trouble. I think he's in serious trouble. This is a guy who was doing a very bad job on the debate stage. He was underperforming, to say the least. Many people were getting nervous. You saw Elizabeth Warren rising in the polls, and now, even though they attempted to make this about Trump, Joe Biden and his dealings with his son and what he did with respect to that prosecutor that he wanted to get fired and that tape that showed up of him saying we're withholding money, that all implicates him in this. And it's not going to be long before many of those donors who had Biden's back saying he was the most electable are going to pull back and say, you know what, this guy has too much baggage. He is implicated in this. This does not look good for him. And even if you can't stand President Trump, you have to be able to look at a call and say, I don't see any impeachable offense here. Be realistic about it and say that Joe Biden, this was not all known to the public, by the way. There was reports on it. Some people knew about this. Not everybody knew about it. This is not going to help him in 2020.
But the reports would fill a trash can, and you don't even have to light it on fire. Look, I'm not here to defend
But he's on record, Donna.
I'm not here to defend anyone.
Donna, they were saying that they had a problem with potential quid pro quo when it came to President Trump. Joe Biden is on record saying, oh, you're not going to get the money, boasting about it unless the prosecutor gets fired.
Say this.
That is him speaking in his own words.
I recognize that the Senate also has subpoena power, and if Lindsey Graham...
Drag him before the committee.
Then explain that.
Lindsay, are you watching?
But there's no there.
Well,
there's
just because you say
hype.
that doesn't mean it's
there's
true.
There's a lot
Donna.
of hype.
Let him investigate.
No, because, of course, I don't speak with the authority of God. Okay. But Greg,
I do want to ask Greg something because Joe Biden is going to have to report his fundraising numbers very soon. And the president and his committee just came out with a whopping $125 million third quarter haul.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
I think that's a lot of money, Jesse. A lot of crumbs. A lot of crumbs. Look, I'm focusing on what the media is doing right now, and what they are doing is shaping public opinion, all right? So let's say a week and a half ago, nobody cared about impeachment. The numbers said they didn't want an impeachment. It was a bad idea to impeach. It would be bad for the country. Those numbers have shifted dramatically, which is the media reporting that it's shifting dramatically. So who's been pushing those buttons and pulling those strings? The same media reporting this. The story hasn't changed at all. So it's not about reporting. It's about repetition. The story is so small, but what's even smaller is the people that are generating it. I have a theory that 1,000 people are generating this story, right? If that. It might be 500 people are dictating what 350 million people are listening to right now. This is a splash fight in the tiniest kiddie pool of influencers, and it's a self-perpetuating media machine that must generate louder and louder noise as we realize how little there is. There is no there, and I'll even go that way with Biden. I'll say there's no there, period, but this story itself is so small, and the people that are generating this sound is so small. I mean, we are being sold a bill of goods. Remember the good old days when scandals were scandalous. Yeah. I mean, Watergate, Iran-Contra, Monica-gate. This is scandal impersonation. I'm insulted that I'm wasting my time listening to this crap. It's like when you were a kid and you woke up in the middle of the night, you thought there was a monster in your room, but it was just clothes on a chair. This is clothes on a chair.
Greg wants dead bodies, break-ins, and sex.
I think this is good. To the last point about the money.
Yeah.
This helps Trump because it angers the public because they feel that they're being drawn into a false drama, including even the Biden stuff. You have a fist-sized group of people having a monumental effect on an entire country, and they're just saying, "Screw you! I'm voting for the orange devil, whether you like it or not."
All right. Wow. Greg is on fire.